We're going to look closer now at the recognised prior learning tool, and this is the one where some of the draft evidence has been gathered in 2012 for my own recognised prior learning. So this is based on the assessed competence unit of competency, so you will be able to download that unit of competency there. Of course, you could go to training.gov.au and access it that way as well. So I'll just double click to open up that document, and this is what the fast tracking teachers template will look like. You're welcome to go in and do a file save as and actually place that document of mine. It's a very early draft document, so I'm very happy to share that with you and have you modify it for your own needs and place it in week 4. So you would replace my name with your name there as the candidate. And there's just some preamble information there about copyright. Page 3 gives you an idea of the RPL process, and this is what you can actually talk about with your candidate. So the candidate makes the application, there is an interview where all of the documents been provided to the assessor. There's the assessor will take that away and have a look at that, look for any gaps or any areas where they need to make further judgments or deeper judgments about competency. So then they have, this is a nice way of saying it, it's a competency conversation. So that's where some enabling questions are asked because further information might be required or suggested. Pieces of evidence might be recommended to really allow an assessor to make a clear judgment on competency. There might then, within that competency conversation session, be a need for some practical assessment. So they would sit there face-to-face or on a webcast, perhaps if it was e-learning. It was like, and you know, perhaps the issue might be that they really hadn't demonstrated in the evidence they provided that they know how to go to training.gov.au and be able to ensure that they've got a current version. So that's where some practical assessment might work around that as an example. So once any practical activities have been suggested by the assessor, if there's still any areas of not yet competent, there would be some gap training that would be planned. And at the end of that, when that's been assessed and competent, then you can issue the statement of attainment or the qualification, and that's issued, of course, by the registered training organisation that the assessor works with. So following that is the evidence review. And there might be a whole host of units that are being assessed for recognised prior learning. This is just a little bit simple. We're just assessing one unit of competency, and that meets the critical aspects of what we're doing here in week 4. Just one unit of competency, not a whole qualification. So we're going to look at the conduct assessment. Now, looking at the rules of evidence, and I'm looking at that straight on my poster here now, I'm seeing that it's about sufficiency, and we've got lots of assessment methods. There's lots of areas of evidence to look at there, so it's quite sufficient, all right? And that will be signed off by the assessor and dated to ensure that, yes, they've accepted those areas of evidence. So the next section is information for the candidate. So you as the candidate who might be submitting your RPL, or information for you as the assessor giving your own candidate. At least it's all outlined here on the templates, and each RTO will have their own RPL tool. This is just sharing with you a very common one that's used among RTOs that Evoke has modified. So what does it mean to be recognised as a trainer or assessor? This is because we're doing a recognised prior learning for the qualification in training and assessment, which is assessed competence. So there's a lot of preamble provided there about the qualification that you're looking at. This is the important bit though, tips and hints to help you prepare for recognition. To have skills formally recognised in the national system, Assessors must make sure you have the skills and knowledge to meet the industry standard. This means you must be involved in a careful and comprehensive process that covers the content of all units or qualifications, so you can be recognised for your qualification. Now, assessment happens in a variety of ways, and being prepared can save you and your assessor valuable time and hassle and make the recognition process pretty stress-free. So here's some tips. You need to be ready with a clear understanding of your job roles and your work history. So a resume is excellent, and if you haven't got a resume, at the very least have already jotted down some ideas of where you've worked, over what time, whether it was paid, even unpaid work, even voluntary work is acceptable if it can demonstrate skills and knowledge and what you've actually done there. Rule of thumb is most people these days would have a resume available. If you can and if you have it, your position description, it depends on the level of role. If it was a supervisory position, you would have a position description given to you. Any performance appraisals would be fantastic. That's a great supplementary source of evidence. So if you've got performance appraisals, that's going to be showing competence. Is there any chance that we can contact the workplace? You know, did you leave on good terms? Or, you know, is this training that you're doing a private thing that you don't want them to know about? Or is it something, is there a peer there that you could confide in that perhaps we could be in contact with? So, you know, who are some points of contact at your current or previous workplace that could offer some great opportunities for evidence there? And if you could just go back through your files and look at any certificates, any in-house training, any folders with in-house training or formalised external training that you've done. Doesn't necessarily have to be nationally recognised training. Just see what you've got there to bring along. And speak with the RTO about other ways. And really the RTO is going to put you through to the relevant assessor anyway. So the assessor about other ways you can show your skills. And that's where, back here on the flowchart, we would be looking at suggesting some practical opportunities for you to show your skills. Okay. You could have letters from your employer, professional development records. Certainly teachers have to keep a professional development log, and some of those areas based on the 10 standards could quite well be relevant, but it has to have that vet sector context. You know, workplace forms, workplace products. You know, we can actually make some common suggestions there for you. So step 1, you attach any, you know, you tick off any that you can supply, and this has been custom made specifically for fast tracking teachers. So that way it's language around teaching in the K-12 curriculum. However, there is some of you here that aren't fast tracking as teachers, so you just simply wouldn't be attaching a K-12 curriculum lesson plan. You might, however, have done some training in the workplace and have had a lesson plan. Not necessary if you haven't got that lesson plan documentation. Just tick through anything that you do have and make sure you photocopy it and attach it to the form. Then you go into the step 2, which is the conversation. So we need all of this information now at week 4, so we can start to work through with the assessor that you'll be placed with. It might be myself as the tutor at this initial phase, and then I'll undergo validation with it, or it might be one of our other assessors. So if you can work on getting all of that together in week 4, we can start to look at your recognised prior learning. But just to flick you through, there'll be a conversation then, And that will lead through, so the conversation will be an opportunity for some enabling questions, direct questions to flesh that out, and that practical demonstration perhaps that'd happen on the webcast, and further steps if there was any need for training. So you might find that a self-assessment questionnaire is helpful because you are all working through these units of competency. My suggestion is you tick off yourself. Now that we've done a lot of the assessment units, if you feel that you could get recognised prior learning for any of these, just tick this off. This is just at a unit level. So you're looking at the unit title. Have you ever assessed competence before in your workplace? Frequently? Infrequently? Never? See how you go with that. You can use that one that I've got there. Then you've got the application form. So obviously you're all going to be the occupation you're seeking as a qualified trainer and assessor. Change my details through to your details there. It's all fairly self-explanatory. You would change it to any of the courses or qualifications that you've currently got there. And any workplace referees. Attach your resume. Also attach any qualifications, so other nationally recognised training or, higher AQF levels like university testaments. It is written for teachers fast tracking, but this is an electronic document, so you can actually you can make any adjustments or add, perhaps put a slash and say, certificate 3 and whatever, and leave it ticked. So add, take away any of those areas, minutes of meeting, lesson plans, if you've attended a meeting and been involved in training or what have you, attendance record sheets. Just have a look, remove anything that doesn't apply. Your assessor will look at this column here, so it's just important that you attach as much, and this is really just to prompt you to give you an idea of the types of things that you might want to provide. And sign it at the end. So if you can get up to the end of page 16, that certainly gives you an idea of the first step in that RPL process from a candidate's perspective. Then, of course, in step 2, there'll be a question bank that your assessor will create for you.